Hello and welcome to the Mid-Range Jimbo Show. I'm Austin.
And I'm Michael. If you'd like to hear about basketball content, well, drop a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Today, we're talking about our predictions for the standings in the Western Conference. So, first, we have the Dallas Mavericks. And I think we're kind of in agreement here that they're not going to be a whole lot better than last year, mostly because I feel like Seth Curry was kind of a key part to that team, at least for their offense. And I'm fairly certain Dwight Powell will be out for the whole year.
Yeah, him with his torn Achilles, it's really hard to know if he'll come back this year because I can't remember around what time he tore it last year. I know it was at least before the shutdown, but I
Hmm.
still can't remember the exact time. The thing with this team is Curry was a big part. Josh Richardson does fill that role fairly well simply because he brings a lot better defense than Seth Curry can.
Yeah.
But of course, his shooting isn't as good as Curry's is.
No, not even close. I mean, Seth Curry is. I mean, I think he's only second to his brother in terms of
I
best
think he
shooters in the
passed
NBA.
his brother for like
Well,
percentage wise.
yeah, but I mean, Seth Curry doesn't do as much off the dribble, and people
No.
aren't keying in on him like they are Steph. So, in my opinion, I just think he's the second best shooter in the NBA.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And if you look at this team starting wise at least, what we have for their starters, some of these guys are kind of undersized to play their positions. Like Finney Smith's 6'7", Josh Richardson is only 6'5", I want to say.
Yeah,
And
he's
then
6'5" or 6'6", something
yeah,
like
and
that.
so is Tim Hardaway. He's also 6'6".
Hmm.
So those three guys are all kind of undersized at their positions, but of course you can change things like that and put Luke on like a 2 or 3, depending on
Hmm.
who is that 2 or 3 he'd be guarding and stuff like that.
Dorian Finney-Smith is a very good defender. So
That's true.
him being the 3 or the 4, I don't think changes a whole lot. Ideally, I believe they'd want to have Dwight Powell as their 4. But I feel like they could maybe run like Maxi Kleber in there and move Porzingis to the 4 or just something. They don't have too much flexibility with their roster.
They don't.
Um,
Their bench is they have some nice bench guys. It's just
mhm.
they don't. You can't plug them into the starting lineup like other teams can with
Yeah.
their bench players.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, we have them as the 4th seed, and that's an improvement from last year. So,
Yeah, I mean it's only a 2 game improvement, but you think about last year when they won 43 games and they were the 7th seed. If they win one more game, they're tied for the 4th seed
yeah.
already. So they were very close to being a 4th seed.
So next we have the Houston Rockets, which I think this is the team with the most like question marks, just based on like what's going to happen with their team. We do have the record at 39-33, and them being the 9th seed, which would be the play-in game. But we have an asterisk next to that because if James Harden gets traded, there's no way this team's making the playoffs.
No, not at all. Of course, there's the big talks right now of Simmons and Harden. There's big trade talks between Sixers, Rockets for those two kind of
Hmm.
swapping. Of course, you need to match salaries and stuff like that, but it'd basically be a swap for those two players. And
Yeah.
Ben Simmons and John Wall will not work together. It's as simple
No.
as that. They can't. They can't work together. It's just not possible for those two to work.
I mean, John Wall should be improved from 3, from when he played before, just because that was his trajectory and his shooting percentages were going up. And I feel like with all this time off, he'd be a little better at shooting enough to where people would have to respect him. But he's still a ball dominant guy.
hmm And he wanted to leave the Wizards partially because he was shocked they were wanting to center around Bradley Beal.
Which I don't know how. Did he just not watch basketball
I
last
guess
year?
not, but then you think if they are trading Harden for Simmons, they're going to build around Simmons 100%.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
guy's an amazing player,
Hmm.
and you would build a team around him like you do a guy like LeBron James.
And then they would be stuck with John Wall up until his contract is up because, I mean, the Wizards had to give up a first to get rid of him.
Yeah, exactly. And the Rockets don't really have any first to be giving up to
No.
begin with to get off of a contract like Walls.
Oh, I mean, they would probably. I would imagine they'd probably get at least one if they traded Harden to Philly, even if it was for Ben Simmons. But I mean, that could give them some extra picks. But even then,
Yeah, it's tough, and like their depth is very lacking too.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's always been a problem for them, but this year it's really come full center because you look at this bench unit, and yes, we put DeMarcus Cousins on the bench, but that was simply because I don't know how much he's going to be in the starting lineup alongside a guy like Christian Wood personally, because those two on the court, I don't know how they fit together, and DeMarcus Cousins is still trying to play himself back into shape and back into basketball, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, this team just has a bunch of question marks. So, what we have is definitely not definitive. I mean, lots of things could happen with this team. Next, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, which, for being a young team like they are, you would like to see some improvement, but we actually have them as, I would say, technically being worse, even though their record, they have more wins and less losses.
Yeah, they're not even making play-in on our list here.
Yeah.
And that's for the simple fact that other teams got better. It's not that the Grizzlies are a worse team by any means. I mean, the roster is almost the same, but you got to think starting this year, Jaren's not going to be there at the beginning of the year. That's huge. Jaren's a big player for the Grizzlies. Of course, he's there for the starters because he should be back within a week or two, I hope, of the season starting.
Yeah, I haven't seen a timetable, but I know he's not supposed to miss too much time.
Yeah, and so he'll be out, and you'll have to plug in a guy like Brandon Clark, who I love Brandon Clark very much, but he's not as good of a player as Jaren is, for sure.
That, and I can't wait to see Justice Winslow hopefully have a full year this year.
Yeah, Justice Winslow too. I don't know when he's coming back.
Because, I mean, he looked good with Miami in the games that he was healthy last year, and the year before that. Like, he was fantastic, like, kind of running the point. Granted, Memphis does have Tyus Jones off the bench, so they don't exactly need a bench point guard. But I still think that, he can definitely run some sets and just have the ball in his hands. I feel like that's when he's at his best.
Oh, 100%. And I really think that Desmond Bane can learn a lot from Justice Winslow because Bane has slight abilities to handle the ball too. He could become a secondary ball handler.
Yeah.
And Justice is a great guy to learn from to do that because they're both wing guys. So I really like that as well.
That, and if Memphis plays Desmond Bane, I really wonder what his shooting is going to be like in the NBA because, I mean, that's why he was drafted, is because he's a good shooter.
He's looked good in preseason. His shots fallen pretty well. I mean, few games he's scoring about 10 points a game, I'd say right now. Is decent efficiency as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
granted it's only 2 preseason games.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, it's been a little bit here and there with him. He's shown a lot of potential, and I'm really excited to watch him play for the team.
But overall, I mean, this should be an exciting team to watch. I mean, just all these pieces together.
Yeah.
Ja, Dylan Brooks.
Ja's, he's prime time for sure.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people would tune in to watch Memphis, to see Ja attempt to dunk it on someone, because he ain't got a lot of posters yet.
No, he's filling them out, though.
He's trying. He almost got AD, and that one he almost had on Kevin Love where he jumped over him, man. He finishes those two, that would be crazy.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, Memphis, they should be the 11th seed, which is technically a step back, but overall, I mean, this is still a growth year for them. Yeah. They're still rebuilding.
Big, bright future, that's for sure.
Next, we have the New Orleans Pelicans, which this team is so weird. It's such a weird fit. It really is. We have them as the 10th seed, which would put them in the play-in game. But I don't really see how all these guys fit together, because you look how many non-shooters they have.
Yeah.
I mean, Zion, he's not a great shooter. Steven Adams, not a good shooter. Eric Bledsoe, not a good shooter. Jackson Hayes. I mean, obviously Alonzo, he's been getting better. I would call him a good shooter.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely a good shooter.
Ingram's okay.
Ingram's a good shooter. It's just he's not looking for his three-point shot all the time. He's more of a mid-range slashing kind of guy.
Yeah. But, like, I don't see how Bledsoe really fits into this team, and that's why we decided to have him on the bench. But I feel like he's more talented than being a bench point guard.
Oh, 100%. He shouldn't be a starter, but I wouldn't start him over Lonzo Ball, and I wouldn't start him over JJ Redick simply for the shooting.
Mhm.
JJ Redick is like the best shooter on this team by a mile, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not even close.
I mean, I would rather have JJ or Josh Hart start than having Bledsoe and Lonzo together.
Yeah,
Because Lonzo's best when he has the ball in his hands.
very much so.
Because he creates for others, and then also in the starting lineup, you also have Ingram. He's got to have the ball in his hands.
Very, yeah. And Eric Bledsoe he's kind of one of those like chucker types who sometimes he wants to be the main guy when he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We've seen that in Milwaukee, and it was a problem. He did that with the Suns. It wasn't so much a problem because it's not like they were playing for much, of
Yeah.
course, but
Yeah.
he's always had that kind of problem, and it falls into guys like Terry Rozier also does that as well.
But overall, I mean, this team should be better than last year. This roster just has more talent.
Yeah.
And, like, Steven Adams is an upgrade over Derek Favors.
Very.
Eric Bledsoe is an improvement over who was their backup point guard last year? Frank Jackson.
Oh, I'm not even sure. They had so many point guards on their roster.
But like he's an improvement off the bench. Brandon Ingram is going to be better. At least I assume so. Zion should definitely be better.
Yeah, as long as Zion stays healthy. Because
Yeah.
obviously they only played 19 games last year.
But, I mean, again, another fun team to watch. They should make the play-in game. At least I kind of hope they do. Just because I know the media would go crazy with Zion in the playoffs and stuff.
Definitely.
So. Next, we have the San Antonio Spurs. And I'm not a big fan of this roster. And I know you're not either. We have them at 28 and 44, which would put them as the 14th seed in the West. But I don't know. Because in the play-in games in the bubble last year, they had DeMar at the 4.
They were playing DeMar at the 4, but LA was hurt.
Yeah.
So we have to keep that in mind. And we were talking about this before we started recording. We're thinking LA is going to get traded, or should at least get traded this year, possibly.
I kind of assume DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge would both be traded.
Right. Definitely LA for sure, because he's aging at this point, and you can still get something for him right now.
Yeah.
At least from some, I wouldn't call them contenders, but maybe mid-level teams who are trying to get a guy to push to be contenders. They might be able to get picks.
I mean, I could see the Mavs trying to maybe make a move for him, or maybe like the Heat or something. Just like adding in a veteran guy who has experience to help out your roster and stuff like that. I don't know what DeMar's future is with the Spurs. If they do hold on to him and extend him, I would love to see more of him being run at the 4, just because I thought he worked really well there. And if they were to do that this year, either have LaMarcus Aldridge or Jakob Pearl come off the bench and move DeMar down to the 4, and then you add in a guy like Keldon Johnson or Devin Vassell, Lonnie Walker. You put one of those guys in the starting lineup, and honestly, I feel like that's a pretty solid starting lineup.
It is. It's the weird thing though is like they're younger guys. Of course, Pop is kind of stingy with minutes for younger players, so. And I don't think that motto kind of works anymore because you're going to have to start rebuilding soon, and you need to play younger guys during rebuilds to see what you can make out of them before it's too late, and they leave, or you just trade them for nothing.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, another down year for the Spurs. I hope they get a good draft pick and start to turn things around, because I'd hate to see Pop leave when they are doing bad,
Yeah. This year, next year, I think is probably Popovich's last year's head coach in the NBA, which is sad to see.
Next, we have the Golden State Warriors, which this is definitely a team that's keyed for the most improvement. I mean, obviously getting Steph back is huge. Really wish they could have Clay back, but he's hurt again, which really sucks for them. But their roster still has a big improvement over last year.
Yeah, they definitely they have Curry back. That's the biggest thing here. He can win you a bunch of games by himself.
Oh yeah.
Draymond Green, I'm hoping he can get back to maybe not all-star form, but not the atrocity that we saw last year.
I think the biggest problem for him last year is they weren't really playing for anything.
That's
Like
fair.
I feel like he just kind of knew the season was over, and
Yeah.
maybe wasn't giving it his all. But
I had a guy like Draymond Green. He's so crazy. I think he was giving it
yeah,
his all every night.
yeah.
And
Well, that and he does play best when all the attention is off of him and it's like on Steph and
yeah,
Clay.
yeah, definitely. Of course, Wiggins is kind of a big question mark here. What is he going to look like this
Yeah.
year? Because I assume most people have seen the pictures of him. He looks kind of like he's been in the gym a little bit,
Oh yeah,
stuff like that.
he looks big.
He looks bigger. Draymond's going to be dogging him about defense, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I think if we see some reports come out this season from that, I think it'd be. I have this feeling it's going to be eerily similar to Jimmy Butler.
That's what I was thinking too.
But I feel like Wiggins might have a different mentality being alongside Steph and Draymond because these guys are champions.
Yeah, and I feel like he might feel like I don't want to offend Timberwolves fans, but that he's actually playing for something now,
Yeah.
which you aren't really doing in Minnesota most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Kelly Oubre is a very solid NBA player that
Yeah.
any team would like to have. I think he's one of those guys that he's probably going to get traded a lot in his career. I think kind of be a journeyman type.
Yeah.
But wherever he goes, he's going to be impactful.
I
I truly think that.
He's already on his third team, and he's only been in the league 4 or 5 years.
I'm going to say 5.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but
So
yeah.
they're starting to add up. But, I mean, with all this improvement that the Warriors have, we still have them as the 8th seed. So they'll be playing the Rockets in the playing game. And, just according to the records that we have now, I definitely think this team would win.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And of course, James Wiseman, we don't know what we're really getting with him right now.
I think he's going to be really good. Really
Right.
good for this team.
Yeah, I mean, you think he's Rookie of the Year material, so
Yeah.
we'll see about that. And of course, you have a guy like Kent Bazemore coming off the bench. He's a solid player still.
Yeah, that and Eric Pascal.
Yeah, he's
Damian
a
Lee.
really talented player. He fits better as a bench player, I think Eric does, but he's still talented. So we just got to see what they can put together around Steph, because that's what you're doing this year is putting everything around Steph, not Steph, Clay, and Draymond. It's the Steph show this year.
And next, we have the Los Angeles Clippers, which record-wise, we still have them as the same as last year, which there's not a whole lot different from this team. We do have them as the 3 seed instead of the 2 seed that they were last year, but, I mean, they added Serge Ibaka basically to replace Montrezl Harrell, Luke Kennard to replace Landry Shamet, but that's just about what's different with this team. That's not too much different.
No, it's not. One big thing is, obviously last year at the start of the year, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were both missing time, and they also had load management, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you get them back together, playing together from the start of the year. Hopefully it's going to gel. The team is as a whole. They brought back Reggie Jackson, and they brought him back and told him specifically because they want him to have a bigger role on the team. Because Kawhi went to the front office and said, "Hey, I want a playmaking point guard."
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really get one in this offseason, and Reggie Jackson, he's a decent point guard.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't play a lot last year, and I'm not exactly sure why.
I mean, Reggie's really, and this is coming from a Pistons fan, Reggie's really not a playmaker. He's not that type of guy. He can do it, he's just not the best at it. Personally, I would rather saw the Clippers go out and get like Rubio or something.
Yeah, that would have been a good fit, but I think Reggie falls into another Eric Bledsoe category where he kind of wants to be the guy when he is not the guy. I know that was a big problem with him on OKC when he played there.
Mm-hmm.
With I know him and Adams did not get along very well, and Adams really thought that about him, is that he just wants to be the guy on a team when he shouldn't be, and hopefully he's kind of with age, because he's an older guy now.
Yeah,
that he's kind of learned that he's a role player, and there's nothing wrong with being a role player. He's still a talented NBA player.
Yeah,
it's just he's playing with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who are all stars and all NBA type players.
Yeah.
So
that and the starting lineup that we have here is definitely subject to change. We had quite a discussion about what we should put as the starters. And personally, I think you could have Reggie Jackson in the starting lineup there. Mm-hmm. You could take out Marcus Morris and put in like Luke Kennard, just shifting down Kawhi and Paul George. obviously you could have Zubac instead of Ibaka. Maybe you could toss in Patrick Patterson there. Personally, I think Marcus Morris might work better off the bench just because Paul George, Kawhi, and if you were to replace him with somebody like Luke Kennard, I mean, you have your two main scorers, you got some shooting around them, and then having Lou Will and Marcus Morris off the bench should be fairly similar last year to Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell.
Definitely, because Marcus Morris does like to shoot as well. He likes to get his shots up, and so he kind of fits better into a bench role. I mean, you can, of course, just plug in someone else, and they can just do that all year round. Kind of do a Nick Nurse style of coaching where, they just plug and play players where they need them into each game. They see, we're playing against X team who has X player. We're going to start this guy. Instead of Usage, we're going to start Zubac because we think he'll do better guarding this guy or stuff like that. It's all subject to change for sure.
But overall, I mean, the team didn't change a whole lot. We just have to hope that they have better chemistry together. And I think that's really what it comes down to. So next we have the Los Angeles Lakers. And other than the Warriors, I think this is the team that really improves the most. Just because, I mean, when you get a guy like Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell, I mean, you put those guys together, I mean, I feel like that's kind of equivalent to like one Steph Curry. Granted, their record is not going to change that much because they were the best team in the West anyway.
Oh, yeah. They're champions.
But with this shortened season, with all the games that are stuffed together, I think LeBron will take some games off. And personally, I think that might allow Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell, Anthony Davis, and even KCP to some extent, and Kyle Kuzma, I guess, to just kind of do their own thing. And that might actually help this Lakers team win more games, just because LeBron, as great of a player as he is, he slows some things down sometimes. And I don't know if that's always the best thing in the regular season.
Yeah, that's fair. One of my bigger concerns, and I don't think I've ever really heard anyone talk about this, is obviously between them winning the finals and the start of the season, they have the quickest offseason in the history of the NBA.
Yeah.
AD is a fairly injury-prone player. We have to remember that. I don't wish that on any player.
Yeah.
But that could be a factor. He might be getting hurt more this year and sitting out a few more games simply because he's always been that way in his career. He's always been injury-prone.
I'd rather see him sit out a handful of games, kind of do load management stuff too. Like, obviously, for a lot of these bigger stars, I feel like they're going to have to do that this year if they really want a chance at the championship.
Yeah, because, I mean, if that's the simple fact is if teams notice, hey, LeBron and AD are sitting out, we're going to sit out our guys too to match the fact that LeBron and AD are sitting out. Yeah. That's just how it's going to go. And maybe the NBA is going to be like, yeah, you guys can't do that for the simple fact that it is going to lose them some money. But
well, they did kind of get really upset at the Spurs when they did that. I thought the ruling from that became like you had to give like more than a day's notice or something like that. Like you can't just be like, yeah, they're all playing whatnot, and then on the injury report just before the game, be like, yep, these guys are sitting out.
Yeah, and I think they also talked about I think they might do it this year where if it's like a nationally televised game, players can't just load management for that game because it's nationally televised.
I feel like there are plenty of loopholes there, though.
There probably is, but I think that's a rule they put into place, and that makes sense to do because it's if you're on national TV, you want to see the best of the best play. You don't want to see the benches play each other.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, this team is better than last year, so we have them as the 1 seed in the West again. Next, we got the Phoenix Suns, which another team for a lot of big improvement. Chris Paul, personally, I think he's going to lead this team to the playoffs. We have them as the 7th seed, which puts them in the play-in game against the Pelicans. But I really like this team, personally.
Yeah, I mean, what can we say other than Chris Paul is there now, and he's such a talented player and makes everyone around him better. And they not only bring in Chris Paul, they bring in Jay Crowder, who was just on a championship level Miami Heat team.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a big piece there. DeAndre Ayton, we're going to get a full season of him, hopefully without any injuries. Of course, it was not
suspensions.
Yeah, I was going to say it wasn't an injury last year, but a suspension. You have Cameron Payne, who was actually looking like a quality NBA player in the bubble. Javon Carter, who's just a hustle, kind of Patrick Beverly type of player.
Yeah.
Mikal Bridges, he looks like he's going to be a really good 3-and-D player as well. Yeah. The roster looks, it's weird to say this about a Phoenix roster, it looks like a really bright future they have there.
That, and speaking of 3-and-D, Cam Johnson, he's one of my favorite players of this past season. People were making fun of the Suns for picking him because they took him earlier than what he was supposed to go. And, I mean, they didn't play him a whole lot to start the year, but as the season went on, he got some minutes, and then in the bubble, he really took off.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things about him in the bubble taking off was Oubre was out, so they needed someone to fill that role, and he got a chance, and he really proved himself that, hey, I can do this.
And I think that really led to them being able to make the move for Chris Paul. Because if they didn't know that Cam Johnson could be a solid NBA player, I don't think they move on from Oubre.
Yeah, that's fair.
But this starting lineup also has quite a bit of flexibility compared to other teams that we've talked about, because granted, we have Jay Crowder and Sarge in the starting lineup. But, I mean, those guys can easily come out for Bridges and Johnson. Or, I mean, maybe you could toss in Etuan Moore there. I mean, there are some options there.
Yeah, it's a really good team that has a lot of options that they can do. I personally wanted Sarge in the starting lineup simply because I really like his game. He's a very talented passing big man as well. So that's always nice to have, because you have Chris Paul, who's an exceptional playmaker, and then you also have a guy like Sarge, who's also a very solid playmaker, and Devin Booker, who's shown flashes of playmaking.
Yeah.
The ball movement on this team is going to be superb.
Well, that was something that they were really good at last year, with having Baines and Rubio in their starting lineup to start the year, with Ayton being out. Their team playmaking was just, in my opinion, was off the charts. Like, it was fantastic. So, yeah, we have this team making the playoffs, and Devin Booker, first time in the playoffs, I think he'll do good.
Oh, definitely.
Next, we got the Sacramento Kings, which I don't think I'm alone in saying that this is a weird team. We have them as the 13th seed, technically being worse from last year because one less win, whatever, but I don't quite know what they're doing with their front court just yet.
I don't either. It always seems like they do this where they just get too many centers on a roster.
Yeah.
It was like this during the Cousins era, and it's looking like it's going this way again.
Yeah.
And what are they doing with Buddy Hield? He clearly wants out.
Yeah. And they have the perfect replacement in Haliburton. He looked great in this preseason.
He did, very much so. And I mean, you look at Haliburton's stock from the beginning of the year when they came out with the mock draft. I remember him talking about this somewhere. He was supposed to go 51 to the Lakers, which would have been a steal for the Lakers, of course. But he's moved all the way up to 12th where he landed. And that was, he dropped in the draft. Let's not forget that. He'd be a perfect replacement for Buddy Hield. And Hield wants out. You can trade Hield for something. He's a very amazing shooter. So you can get something for Hield in a trade. They also have Whiteside back. Let's not forget that he started his career in Sacramento with DeMarcus Cousins. Whiteside is one of those guys, if you look on paper and see he averages, 16 and
16, 14, and 3 blocks.
Right. That looks amazing.
Yeah.
But he's a minus defender because
him play bad.
Yeah, because he hunts blocks.
Mm-hmm.
He will give up a defensive rebound to try and get a block, even though the shot's going to miss anyway.
He goes for blocks. He misses rotations. He doesn't have the foot speed that you want from a big man. It's just, I was really hoping that no team would sign him because I don't like Whiteside.
That's fair. I wouldn't go that far because I still think he could be a decent off the bench player. I mean, that's what he did in Miami. He started as a bench player, and he tore it up in Miami as their bench center.
Yeah, but he's already got his bag.
That's fair
And
too.
I think he was really fighting for that initially, just trying to get paid, trying to up his 2K rating.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
I like this team as far as De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton. We'll see what Marvin Bagley can do, but I don't see them being a playoff team.
Yeah,
Not even close.
Let's not forget Luke Walton is a horrible coach.
Yeah.
It's also a big problem here. He's probably the worst coach now that Jim Boylan isn't in the NBA anymore as a coach. And obviously one of the biggest reasons Hield wants out is because of Luke Walton and what he's done with him and the role he's put Hield into. And Buddy Hield's like, no, what are you doing? This isn't my game. Like, let me play my game.
But overall, I mean, not too much improvement. Next, we got the Denver Nuggets, which personally, I think this is going to be one of my favorite teams to watch this upcoming season. We have them as the 2 seed in this coming season. Slightly better record. I mean, they have a good team. They're not as deep as they have been in years past, but they still have a fantastic team. And earlier today, I saw a report about Will Barton being the starter over Michael Porter Jr.
Yep. Will Barton said, I don't want to be the 6th man.
Yeah.
So Malone basically went to Porter and said, we're going to have you come off the bench and let Barton start.
Which we'll see how long that lasts. Personally, I don't mind this because I think MPJ, being the main scorer off the bench, will give him more opportunities than being the 3rd scorer in the starting 5.
Yeah, I was kind of against it at first, but the more I thought about it, Porter is an amazing on-the-ball scorer. Mm-hmm. Off the ball, not so much. He's not very good off the ball. So you put him onto the bench where he's the number 1 option, I think he could really thrive in that role.
But, I mean, Jamal Murray, let's hope he keeps up what he had going in the bubble. Jokic, same thing. I mean, this team's just, it's good. It really is. Just those 2 alone, I think, would be enough to put you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That, and I really hope that we get to see Bol this year. So, I think he'll have a good season. I mean, I don't know how many minutes he'll get, but just being a 7-2 guy, it's just, he's going to be a good scorer.
Oh, yeah. He looks like he can create his own shot at 7-2, which is scary to think about.
Yeah.
Another player I'm really wanting to see what he can do this year is Gary Harris. I think this is kind of make or break season for him to see if he can get back onto track to being a quality NBA player.
Yeah. I really wish the best for Gary Harris. I mean, I'm a Michigan State fan. I watched him play in college. I always liked Gary Harris. So I really hope he does good.
Yeah, me too. I was so big on him when him and Jokic were coming up together, and they looked like they were going to be a really good duo. And now it's Jamal Murray and Jokic, and Gary Harris was relegated to basically a 4th option with Michael Porter Jr. when he's playing with them.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see because he's still a superb defender, but his offensive game has stagnated so badly.
Mm-hmm. And personally, if we're looking at Harden trade destinations, I think personally Denver is my favorite just because I think it would be awesome to see Jokic and Harden together. In my opinion, those are the 2 most gifted offensive players in the NBA. Just like they can each basically do everything. But what Denver would have to give up, I don't see them doing it. Yeah. I think it's fun to think about though.
Yeah, it'd either be him or maybe Bradley Beal would be really fun to see on this team too. Yeah.
So next we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. And while we do have them improving from last year, I mean, they're still the 12th seed, which is not good if you ask me. I mean, their team is obviously better. You know, they'll have a full year of D'Lo, full year of Beasley. Hopefully Karl Anthony Towns is healthy. But I don't see anybody on this team who can stop opposing teams from dropping 130 on them.
Yep. It's a very similar situation to the Wizards.
Yeah.
Where they can score a lot of points, but they can't stop teams from scoring a lot of points either.
No.
And the problem with this team is they never have an identity, I feel. The team itself,
Yeah.
it's just we're trying to be a good team, but they have no reason as to why they're a good team, except they have talented players on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a culture in Minnesota. And I know we kind of talk about culture a lot. We kind of beat it to death, but it's so important I
feel like it really is. Just teams don't pay it enough attention.
Yep. If you can build a good culture, you can build an amazing team. Everyone remembers Showtime Lakers.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of their culture. Everyone remembers the 90s Bulls because of their culture.
I don't know if the 90s Bulls is because of the culture. I think it might have to do a little bit with something like Michael Jordan, but...
Bad Boy Pistons.
Yeah, that's a culture.
That's a culture.
But
this team doesn't have that, and let's be honest.
To be fair, they don't have any players that would be nearly as good as, the guys you just listed. Those are all-time
on those
teams.
That's completely fair, but even if you try to build a culture, it's something, but they're not really doing that, and they don't really have any leaders on this team, except I guess I kind of classify Ricky Rubio as a leading guy.
Yeah, I would say
but other than that...
I mean, they tried to build a culture with Jimmy Butler, and then they decided to back the wrong people on it.
Yeah. Jimmy is a culture-building guy, but the other players didn't want a culture. It seemed like Towns was like, nah, I'm good with never making the playoffs and just putting up empty stats on a bad team.
Yeah. But, I mean, with the addition of Anthony Edwards and Ricky Rubio, they help the team a little bit, but just they're not pushing the needle that much.
No, they aren't. And who knows, Cat might leave soon. He might request a trade.
So next, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I don't think I'm alone in saying this. I think they're due for the biggest decline. Like, we have them dropping by 26 wins.
Yeah, and also being the bottom seed in the Western Conference and the whole NBA.
Yeah, like, they have 2 less wins than the Detroit Pistons. So, and if you ask me on this team, Shea can get you a couple wins. George Hill, maybe one if you're lucky. Al Horford, he could get you a couple.
If we see Game 7 Lou Dort, he can get you a few as well.
Yeah. But, like, other than that, I mean, it's just young guys and a couple veterans. They're just trying to make their way in the NBA and stuff like this. And I am so excited for Aleksej Pokusevski. I've seen him in the preseason games, and he looks amazing.
Yeah, you're so big on him, and I get why. He fits that unicorn mold. Yeah. It's just the guy weighs like 10 pounds, so so that's kind of a problem.
I heard somebody say this, and it was like watching a 44-pound J.R. Smith. And I thought it was hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
But I don't think he's going to tear up the NBA right away. He doesn't have the body for that. No. But talent, it's there.
Yep, he has the potential, and that's a big word in the NBA, is having potential, and he has a lot of it. And obviously this whole starting lineup and bench could be completely different, or not completely, most of it be different by the end of the year, because they might be trading guys like Al Horford, at the trade deadline, something like that, maybe, if he has a kind of a resurgence year and can prove that he's still a really good NBA player.
I feel like they might end up holding on to him for at least a season or two. I could really see them waiting until he's on his final year of this deal before trading him.
Yeah, that's also a good idea. I don't think Trevor Ariza's staying here for the whole year. I've said that before. I think he's getting dealt at the deadline for sure.
Well, he's an expiring contract.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So that obviously adds a lot of value to him. I hope SGA takes another step, because he's the guy on this team now.
Yeah, I think he's definitely in running for most improved player.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that he's going to necessarily improve so much from last year. He's the guy now. He gets more shots. His stats are going to look better from last year.
And, I mean, whenever you have a young guy becoming the guy on a team, Uh, it's really just kind of like really showing whether they can be the guy. And personally, I think SGA can. It obviously still needs more development, but you can say that with a lot of younger guys in this league. But if there's anybody who could do it, it's SGA.
Yeah, I mean he's a hardworking guy. I mean,
Mhm.
I've read stories of him in college. Dude's just a workhorse, like the Jimmy Butler types of the
Yeah.
NBA, who just it's their passion, it's what they love to do, and they just work to be the best.
Next, we have the Portland Trailblazers, which uh, not the same as my hot takes. We have them as the fifth seed. I personally think they should be a little higher because
Yeah,
their team is, I think it's really deep. Like
yeah.
they have so many options to change things up with their starting lineup and everything. Uh, that and Nurkic is back, and I think people don't realize how big of a deal he was for this team.
Oh, 100%. Nurkic is a huge piece of this team. Gary Trent, he was looking really good
Yeah.
at the end of the year. Dude was looking like he could be one of the best kind of role players in the NBA. And then
Hmm.
you say that, and then you look at the guy right below him, probably, in my opinion, the best role player in the
Yeah.
NBA, Robert Covington. Then you have Melo, hopefully not going full Thunder Melo and getting mad that he's going to be coming off the bench.
Yeah.
You
I think he may have accepted his role this time.
I think he has after spending a year out of the NBA and almost retiring, he said. He might
Hmm.
understand that. Zach Collins will be back. Dude's a really good defender.
Yeah.
Has to work on
Yeah.
his offensive game and his canter. He can be a really good bench scorer for you.
Yeah, we'll see what his role really is with his team
Yeah,
because not listed here, but they also have Harry Giles.
that's true.
And I personally, I think I'd rather give Giles the minutes.
Yeah, I'd like to do that just to see what he can do because
Yeah.
he has potential, and of course he's just had so many injuries that have really derailed his such young career at this
Yeah.
point. Derek Jones Jr. quality wing to have.
Hmm.
I mean, you'll get a few highlights from him that are just
Yeah.
awesome to watch over and over.
I mean, personally, I would have loved to see who's the guy they had last year who had all who just has like the highlights.
Hazonia,
Yeah, I would
yeah.
love to see Hazonia and Derek Jones Jr. on the same team. Just highlight after
Oh yeah, Mario.
highlight.
What's he done in his career? Blocked LeBron for a game winner
Yeah,
and dunked on Giannis.
yeah,
Dude's an all-star.
yeah. That would have been fun to see. But this team is really deep. I love the addition of Robert Covington. He's one of my favorite players. Um, and there's just so much they can do with their starting lineup too. Because let's say Rodney Hood ends up, basically looking the same. Put him in the starting lineup instead of Gary Trent,
Yeah.
or maybe toss Anthony Simons in there and go a little smaller, or start Zach Collins instead of Gary Trent or Robert Covington, and just move one of those guys to the three. Like they do have some options.
Yep. They have really good options to just match up to any team that they
Mhm.
need to.
So next we have the Utah Jazz, and they're basically the same team as last year. I mean, we have them with the
Yeah.
same exact record.
We are recording this the day that Gobert got his max,
Yes.
so congrats to him on
Yeah.
that, getting his bag. That was always a big question: is how much is Rudy Gobert
Yeah.
worth in today's NBA?
They did not pay him the max, which was a good thing if you ask me, because no offense to Rudy Gobert, the dude doesn't deserve 50 million over 5 seasons.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Cause
Or 50 million on average.
yeah, that's completely fair. Cause I love Rudy Gobert. I think he's an amazing basketball player, but he has a lot of strengths, but also a lot of weaknesses.
I still don't know if this contract is the best, but I mean, they got their franchise cornerstones locked up. They got Donovan Mitchell, they got Rudy Gobert, and now they're just looking. They got what, 5 years now to find the right pieces around them?
Yeah, definitely. I think Conley's on the last year of his deal
Yep.
as well. And Conley, he did not have a good season last
No.
year in Utah, which is I'm a Memphis fan, so that's really sad to see.
Yeah.
We get a full year of Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench. He's a
Yeah.
really good bench scorer.
Yeah, he had like what, it was like in between 16 and 18 points a game last year.
Oh yeah,
or
something like that. He's such a
Yeah.
talented bench scorer. Joe Ingles, always a great guy to
Jingle and
have.
Joe.
Yeah, Jingle and Joe Ingles.
They got Favors back, which good backup center.
Yep, definitely.
That's all I can really say.
Yeah, Boyan was out that first round against the Nuggets last year, and
Yeah.
I've said this before, and I will continue to say if he's there for that series, they win the series. Boyan is such an underrated player. I feel like
He is good. He is good. But I mean, I just love this Nuggets team. Like even last year, I thought they had a good team. I thought they kind of underperformed against the Jazz a little bit. Like I was worried that they were going to lose
Yeah,
because they weren't playing as good as they should have been.
yeah, that's 100% fair. I think Boyan's a very underrated player because
he is.
he's like a 20 point per game scorer on a top 4 seed playoff team a lot of the time. Obviously, we don't have them top 4 seed, but they have potential to be.
We do have them tied with the Trailblazers with 44 wins, but Trailblazers with the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So they're the 6th seed.
Yep, and he's such a talented player, but he's one of those European guys who just plays his role. He doesn't need to be the star of the team.
That and something that is underrated about him that it's why people don't recognize him as a good scorer is because he's an off-ball scorer. He doesn't need the ball in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
He can catch and shoot. He can run off of the screen. He can cut. Those are things that I think more NBA players need to take advantage of.
Definitely, because obviously Donovan Mitchell is their volume scorer.
Mm-hmm. And just overall, I mean, I think they're going to have another good season. So thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, go ahead and drop a like, subscribe. We would really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And also let us know who you think is going to be at the top of the West this year. If you don't think it's the Lakers. Also, let us know who you think is going to make the play-in games, if there will be like an upset there or something. That's going to be really interesting to see, I think.
Who do you think is going to make it out of the West? Because obviously I have the Lakers.
Same.
I mean, any number of these teams could make it out of the West too. So
yeah, it's always going to be fun to watch.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.